consequences meted out to them. And oftentimes like this, there's violence involved. Oh, what's going on? Stop. How do I exit full screen? Bring me back to our ways. Yeah, school should look like that. It should be more like that. A place where everyone's welcome. School should be and must be supportive of all people. All people. They should be accepting, edifying, and challenging to all students. Schools need to have disciplinary actions that are non-violent, even if the children are not white. Schools should not uphold whiteness as an ideal of education. Oh yeah, one other thing about whiteness is it can be adhered to by non-white people. Now we have, what's her name, Loretta Lynch. This is it's an equivalent right here, our former Attorney General. Him, Loretta Lynch, all these people, they really adhere to whiteness. The system of whiteness, which is the U.S. government and culture. They purport they want to help people of color, yet they adhere to a system that destroys people of color, locks them in prison, destroys them. I say that these people are the main reason why there has been no progress in equity, diversity, and inclusion in our schools. Because they don't use the power that's given to them to create change. They adhere to whiteness, to that lifesaver, and make some good money, and have a good time, and be treated like the high-level slaves used to be treated. So slavery is embedded all over in contemporary culture. I've tried to show that with a badge and what I'm talking about here. Here's another more striking view, I think, of how it's embedded in our culture. It takes different forms. Whiteness is fluid. It changes. It's not a thing I can point to and say, here it is, let's look at it. I'll show you a 360 view of it. So, the brutalities that were used to enforce the racial hierarchies of yesterday are still with us today. They used to come in the form of lynchings back in the days of Jim Crow. Now they come in the forms of police shootings of unarmed African Americans and Latinos in far greater numbers than whites. They come in vigilante shootings of unarmed African Americans, for example, Trayvon Martin, etc. And this stuff. So, yeah, this room's kind of weird, but if you guys could break up into small groups and maybe talk, there's some questions to start a little discussion here. Or you can ask me any questions you want. I can answer questions too, but I kind of want to hear what you guys think. Or I think small group is better. Yeah, so break up to like groups of three or so, or 4. Whatever you're comfortable with. These are just some sample questions.
I guess that's great. I have a question.
What's your name and why are you here?
Lynn.
Lynn?
I
Hi,
introduced
Lynn.
myself earlier.
Cool.
You know, conquest has been the way of the world, you know, the uncivilized
Oh, you know
world.
all entire civilization, huh? You know all of history?
Well, it's always been
wow,
aggressive.
that's amazing.
You know, there's always been
I don't know all of history. I study
Can
philosophy.
I ask you a question?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Let's ratchet it down just a little bit. There's always been conquest, but does that mean you believe that current political boundaries are invalid everywhere, or just like in the Americas? Current political boundaries, like Canada, the United States.
I didn't say that at all. I said, maybe what I said.
Do you want to work with him, or should I find another group?
Oh, I'm sorry, no, that'd be fine.
Okay, so should we work together?
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Okay.
It's just
I'll
you didn't
work with you
answer my
guys.
question.
I'll work
All
with you
right,
guys.
so let's, education.
Yeah.
So whiteness and education, examples, mitigate, educational technology, interesting. truth and investigate.
To the point where it's really a nice diversity that I've had in there that's not always what it was. For philosophy in particular, which is a very traditionally affluent, kind of privileged class.
Some of your groups,
Yeah.
what you have to say about the questions here. Who wants to go first? I can always pick people. I'm good at that. But who wants to go first?
So we were talking about gender, and we were talking about ways that are similar in the oppression of patriarchy and whiteness. And so we were talking and thinking about the ways that women weren't allowed into college 100 years ago, right? So our people weren't allowed in. So we were told for however many thousands of generations saying, women can't have big ideas, you can't handle this stuff, you're too dumb to be here. And so there are very similar patterns in which we say, black and brown people are too dumb, they can't handle big ideas, their brains are not worth investing in, they shouldn't be in college. And so we're talking about the way that, let's say 100 years later, now that we're brown, black people and women allowed into college, we're still seeing the legacy of that because we're not seeing the black and brown students coming into college or being taken seriously. Similarly, we're not seeing women coming into college or having access to technology. So we see the similar patterns repeating.
Oh, for sure. And do you guys, do you think that impacts progress, the creation of new knowledge and better societies?
So I kind of feel like our wisdom, our brain power has been wasted all this time, right? There's all these people we've considered throwaway. We've said women haven't had good ideas, they're not worthwhile. We've said black and brown people can't have good ideas. We haven't been getting all of the good stuff that they could have been coming up with all this time.
Huge points. Does anybody else want to answer to that or have anything to add to that or have something else? I could talk about that all day, but I got to hold myself. How do you think it impacts education? Anybody? Does it? Or maybe you think whiteness is cool and it shouldn't be mitigated and we should just cling to it and go with that. What do you think about that? Come on, we're in school. You guys can talk. There's no wrong answers. Go ahead.
Well, we know that educational outcomes, which are facts, reflect the systemic, institutionalized white values of the education system. What the outcomes look like you'd expect them to with a system that was developed and is protected by people invested in that system in that point of view. It was very carefully worded, but do you get what I'm saying? I mean, the outcomes are facts. Women and people of color have less achievement as graduation rates and success rates and employment rates. It's just a fact. And it's probably related to the fact that the system is designed for people to benefit, certain people benefit.
That's a good observation. Yeah.
I'd say, from my personal experience, I went to school in New York, but I've seen like in more where you had like schools of color, you know, they always emphasize like getting like a vocational education, you know, like being a helper of some sort, cooking, whatever. But then I had some brothers who went to more predominantly white schools, and they had more of an emphasis on like liberal arts. You know, they had a good grounding in that, and yeah.
When I was in junior high school, I remember walking a group of students in my class, and one group went to the vocational route, and the other one went to science and math stuff. And it was, I'm not saying they were all 100% racially categorized, but it tended to be the black and brown kids went to the vocational stuff in our school.
I mean, you can see it in the public school system. It's pretty segregated, it seems like. I mean, you don't see a lot of diversity. I went to Lincoln High School, and I mean, majority of everyone there, I think it was like 80% of people were black at high school, maybe, when I was there. Maybe it might have changed, but as far, I mean, you can see there's like, has concentrations of different ethnicities in each school, it seems like, and so people aren't, I feel like it takes us away from being able to make more friends of different ethnicities and things like that. Like my sister and brother, they grew up, we're Spanish, but we didn't know that for a while, until like last year actually. But they grew up, they have green eyes, pale white skin, and blonde hair. So I look very different, so I had a different experience than them, but like they grew up not knowing anybody of color. And I think that's played a huge role in how they view things. Because they grew up in this white system that was just like white people all around them. They're not getting exposed to anything different, and so they don't have any understanding. Whereas I have a completely different mentality because I grew up in a different way.
Yeah, I know a lot of research and anecdotes that I've heard of people, their fear of the other is based on that segregation. Like they don't have friends that are even like class, right? Like I don't have any middle class friends, but ethnicities too. So it's a fear creates prejudice and bigotry and discrimination. That's a huge topic there.
See, there's just my high school system. I mean, Roosevelt, Benson, Jeff, Franklin, well not Franklin, but like those three schools are in Northeast Portland, and like you don't see half as many. It's like the reverse. It's in Lincoln, you see way more white people, but it's the reverse there. You see way less white people, more Asian, more Mexican, more black people, and you're not seeing it.
And if their funding is coming from the neighborhood and the people there don't have a lot of jobs or a lot of money, it's going to be a disparity between that school with all the money and the school with the money.
Yeah,
Right?
I can see that absolutely.
Did you have something, Denise?
So how do we become better allies, Max? As white privileged people, that just burns in me. I want to be the ally. I want to be the activist.
So I have white people in my family through marriage, and like, God, Max, you're bumming me out. I hate this Facebook page post, and like, what do I do? You're making me feel like I can't do anything. The world's horrible. I'm bad or whatever. I'm like, well, you're not bad. You know, like I've benefited from like the slavery, right? The reason why I have a good economy is based on the slavery money that was accrued during that time. So I just say, like, I don't get complicated. If you see something wrong, say something about it. That's all. Like, right? That's all anybody can do. If I see somebody being discriminated against, I'm going to call it out. Hey, don't do that. That's not cool. If I see somebody saying, you're so gay or something like that, I'm going to call it out and say, no, man, don't say that. That's wrong. Any of that kind of stuff, that you just got to get up and say something. Don't allow it to happen. You don't have to be a superhero. You don't have to be Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, but just say something when you see something wrong. I think that goes a long way to help. Go ahead, please.
I think coming from Africa, for myself, we have to stand for the systematic discrimination wherever we go, especially for our kids. I am a mother, so I don't want my child to face what I'm facing every day. So I have to really, I have to put my effort to stand for the kids and for carrying the bushes to be proud, and at the same time also face the challenge other white allies or the poor people that to hear my voice. It doesn't matter whether my accent is there or you don't understand. I will repeat what is right for all of us. So I think it starts from the people who have been discriminated. It's not all right to say this is not right. I mean, this systematic discrimination is still there. We have to change together. We are here. I'm not going anywhere. So I have to acknowledge my existence. I will be here. Then it has to change. It's not, we are not living in the 19th century or 18th century. We are living in the 21st century. And the world is global. It's more connected. We are coming everywhere and going somewhere. So we have to accept each other. If there is any change we need to do, we have to do it together.
Jeff?
So, pretend I'm not wearing this. So the thing that I've learned as a white person, as a relatively privileged white male, is that it's, given all this history, right,
apply what would a colored person do back in the days of like the British slavery? Like they could complain, but what would happen, right? So it's the people who the system is created for, who have the privilege and the power, who need to make the change, right? My good friend Ruth was involved in a program called SAFE, which is a sexual assault and free environment. And one of the tenets of the program is that, you know, a person makes sense to teach people techniques to keep themselves safe, right? But it might be a lot more effective, instead of teaching women how not to get raped, to teach men how to stop raping them, right? And I think it applies in this situation as well. That it's incumbent upon the people with the privilege and power to make the change.
Huge point, thank you, yeah.
Yes. There's a class that needs to start here.
Okay.
Oh, no wonder they're walking out.
Thank you, everybody.
You're welcome.